This is TWiT.
LastPass, which was for many years a sponsor of our shows. It is one of the most used, if not the most used, password manager out there. Has admitted they were hacked. Lawrence Abrams at Bleeping Computer had this story 2 weeks ago. He asked them, they clammed up, but finally this week admitted that they were in fact hacked. But to reassure you, if you use LastPass, there's no evidence that customer data or password vaults were compromised. The threat actors stole portions of the LastPass source code and something LastPass calls proprietary LastPass technical information.
Well, it did force me to go check my security settings and turn on two-factor authentication, which I hadn't done.
Ooh, yes.
Change my password,
Yes.
which I hadn't done for a while. And so if nothing else, it at least lit a fire under my butt because this one scared me.
Yeah, and I guess the worst case scenario, they don't have the passwords in clear. The worst case scenario would be, though, that they got the vaults, which most people who's used LastPass store on LastPass's servers, and then could at their leisure attempt to brute force them. And if you didn't have a good master password, you might be vulnerable at that point. Since we all put all the keys to the kingdom in our password vaults, I don't use LastPass anymore, but no matter what you use, that's got everything in it. It would behoove you to use a good long password, which is hard because you have to remember that one for your master password. I'm sure, Becky, you did not use monkey123.
No, it was password 123.
Much better. And make sure the
check
O's are zeros. Okay, little elite tip there for you. No, use a good, long, strong, somewhat. You know what I do? I'm not going to use a 28-character random password. Nobody's got time to memorize that. I take. I don't want to be too explicit about what I'm doing because I don't want you to reverse engineer it. But let's say you took, maybe you memorized, Will, I know because you had a good public school education, you have memorized many great poems. Let's say you had a Lord Tennyson poem committed to memory. Half a league, half a league, half a league, onward, the Light Brigade, right?
Yeah, so a great
what you use for your Bitcoin
I don't use
locker?
that as much. Yeah, that's what I use.
Yeah.
Should we be
so
looking?
I think there are two interesting things.
No, let me explain what I do before you do that. So I wouldn't make my password half a league, half a league, half a league, onward, all rolled into the valley of death. I would make it HAL, comma HAL, HALO. And maybe I would do uppercases on certain kinds of words. Maybe I'd add punctuation. And then, just to make it really good, so that I can remember because I remember the poem and I can reconstruct the beginning part, I will add something else that I know. For instance, what I like to use is my childhood telephone number, which I memorized as a little kid, but is not in a phone book anywhere anymore, I hope. So by adding those 7 or 10 extra digits, I think that's a pretty good password, not likely to be brute force.
So most security experts say that the best password is not a password, but either a phrase or a mnemonic. So a mnemonic is a great
that's what I'm using as a mnemonic.
So take let's take, for example, because I'm here, William Shakespeare in Julius Caesar says, "The fault, dear Brutus, is not in our stars, but in ourselves." So you would have capital T, F, D, capital B, INIO, S, comma, or exclamation point, let's have a special character, BIO. And that is absolutely, uncrackable because nobody's going, it's not a real word, but it's something that's easy to remember. It's a selection of random things that's completely easy to remember. And that's a great way of doing it.
To remember, I'm confused.
Because
I've forgotten.
The phrase.
Brutus is not in our stars, but in ourselves.
Come on, did you edo memorize anything in your life?
I wasn't a great elementary school student. I was the one throwing desks out the window in 8th grade English.
Do you know a Shakespeare? Do you like to be or not to be? That is the question.
Well, that's too easy.
Okay, yeah, well, you're right. That's probably not a good one. Go ahead, Becky.
I got another way of thinking about this. This is a Steve Gibson trick, which is to use a password that you know pretty well, that might be short, and then pack it with symbols.
Yes.
Or characters.
That's why I do that phone number. He calls it password haystacks.
That's right.
Length makes it harder to brute force, even if you add length in a kind of trivial way.
But if you use characters, because there's so many of them,
Right.
he says that most brute force attack, they don't use as many characters because it's harder and it creates more variables.
Right. So clearly the best password is completely long, random strings of alphanumerics and special characters. But no one can memorize that. So that's why for your master password.
Becky, this Steve Gibson guy is there anywhere I can listen to a podcast with him?
Yeah, I
where can I get more of him?
Unboundbooks.com. No, that's wrong. You're talking about the host of Security Now, which is now in its 18th year as a podcast. Wow. He just crossed the 18-year-old mark. And at grc.com/haystack.htm, he describes this and shows, how the larger the space that you have to search, the more powerful it is. In fact, it looks like KABC produced a terrific and succinct 2.5-minute explanation that you can watch.
That might actually be my story on this, that KABC because I did it on GMA. I thought it was great.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was such a smart idea that was simple. Passwords are so hard for people. The thing I also worry about is that if somebody's been pwned in a previous attack and they've used the same password as their master password.
That's the real problem.
That's
Do
what I
not
worry about
reuse
with
passwords, yes.
With this attack on LastPass.
Yeah.
But I think the key takeaway is that Security Now is legal to drink in England, right?
Yes. It can, but it cannot vote yet. No, it can't vote. It can't drink.
No, it can vote.
It can vote.
It can drink. It can
in
drive.
In England, it can drink.
Hey, it's all happening over here.
It can't drink
Get Steve over here quick.
It can no longer drink in the United States of America.